Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to give you my top 5 Australian batsmen. Well, let's just see how it goes. Okay, I was kidding, alright. I can hear all those Australians now. Bad Australian accent coming in. Rob, you're flaming Pom. Yeah, no problem. But the thing is, my memories growing up of Australian, particularly Test batsmen, was horrific in my mind. Just before I start these top 5, and I have managed to scrape together 5 for you. And at the end of the video, please let me know if you agree, disagree, and who would make your top 5 favourite. There is no qualifying criteria, and it's not based on any sort of accumulation of runs or a batting average or how long they stayed in the game. It's just 5 batters that are Australian that I like. I was always aware that Australia were the main team that England needed to face every 4 years. The Ashes was something I was discovering the importance of. Didn't really understand the background of it, but I kind of knew Australia and West Indies were kind of the main teams that we had to really raise our game to sort of have any chance against. And I remember, I think it was 1993. I'll just cover this really quickly, but 1993, me and my mate Dave, I think we were in the 5th year at comprehensive school. We would, during lunchtime, when the tests were on, during lunchtime, we would walk down to his home, and we would put the television on because we didn't have mobile phones or internet access. We couldn't get updates there. We had to walk down to his home and switch the TV on, BBC. I think it was BBC back then, and just check the score. And I just remember going down day after day after day, and Taylor and Slater never seemed to be out. They were always in, they were always batting. And I've got vivid memory. Well, I may have convinced myself that this was the case, but it always seemed like 100 without loss, 150 without loss, 250 for 1, 350 for 2. And it just felt horrendous. Like every time we'd gone down, switched the TV on, we'd look at the score and nothing had changed. So hence, yeah, a little bit of joking at the beginning, but I do have 5. So my number 5 favourite Australian batsman is probably someone that doesn't really spring to mind that quickly unless you're of a certain age. My number 5 choice is David Boon. Now, a little bit light-hearted on this one. He was a regular in the both sort of one-day international and Test sides for Australia. He was part of the winning side in 1987 that won the World Cup. He rocked an absolutely amazing moustache, and he just looked that little bit different. So when I think of my early Australian players, David Boon walking in, I think he used to come in at 3, maybe 4, but it was like, right, David Boon's here and he looks different and he must be special. And to be fair, he did score 7,000 test runs and quite a lot of one-day international runs as well. But that's not why he's made my top 5. The reason why he creeps in there, other than being one of the first figures that I remember as being an Australian batsman, is the fact that on a flight to England, I think back in 1989, he downed 52 beers on a flight. Now that's going some. Now clearly he loved his food, just like me. Unlike me, he also loved his drink. So to down 52 beers is quite legendary. And although he can't actually confirm that, he does go on to say, well, how could I confirm that? Because if I had downed 52 beers, how on earth would I remember? Which is fair. But I'm willing to believe that he actually got there or thereabouts. So, number 5, David Boon. Okay, so number 4. My number 4 favourite Australian batsman is Adam Gilchrist. Known as Gilly, or Churchy to some. He was the wicketkeeper batsman that took the gloves from Ian Healy in around 1999, I believe. Actually, let me just check my notes. Yeah, 1999. So ultimately, he averaged just over or just about 47 in tests and just under 40, 36 in one-day internationals. His reputation preceded him, for those who hadn't paid a lot of attention to Australian cricket. But coming in at sort of number 7 for the Australian Test side and opening, as I remember, for the one-day international side, he absolutely smashed it. If you've seen any other of my other videos, you'll know how important smashing it is to me. Also from Western Australia, which is the state in Australia that I'm particularly fond of, having spent some time there in 2003, 2004. Gilchrist scored 149 runs in the 2007 One Day International World Cup final. And I think although he retired fairly early, I think it was sort of mid-30s, I think if we were to replicate Gilchrist today in 2024, that player would easily fit into any IPL side right now. Number 4, Adam Gilchrist from Western Australia. Okay, number 3, favourite Australian batsman. This is the second and final Australian from Western Australia. It's Marcus North. Now, maybe some of you are thinking, really, that's an oddball choice. Didn't really do much, and I agree. He only played Test cricket for Australia across 2009, 2010, averaging just over 30, about 35. And he only played a couple, maybe 3 one-day internationals, averaging 3. So no great shakes with the bat. So why does he make number 3 in my list? Well, I mentioned that I was fond of WA, Western Australia, having spent some time out there. And Marcus North absolutely reminds me of the great time that I had out there. So I was lucky enough to go to the WACA on a handful of occasions. Sometimes I saw Matthew Hayden beat Lara's record against Zimbabwe, but that's not what I wanted to mention today. So whenever I went to see sort of generally an evening game, a WA against it could have been South Australia or another state, it always seemed like Marcus North smashed it. And he was only about 23 back then, and he wasn't a regular in the Australian side. I don't think he'd actually broke into that side yet, but he was definitely being talked about, and he was just the player where I think about his name and think about how he played, reminds me of the good times of me and my friend sat in the WACA in Perth, Western Australia, just loving life. So it's kind of like sort of tug on the heartstrings, I suppose. Memories of fonder days, but so that's why he's number 3 in my list. Okay, number 2, we're getting serious now, aren't we? So you're probably starting to filter down a few names in your head and thinking, well, it could be this guy, it could be that guy. This is men's cricket, by the way, as well. I will look at the ladies' game at another time. So number 2 on my list, Ricky Ponting. Why? Few reasons. Now, he became Australia's highest Test run scorer in 2009, breaking a 15-year-old record set by Allan Border. He was the most successful Australia captain. He scored more than 13,000 runs in both Tests and one-day internationals. And when he retired, the only person that had scored more Test runs than him was Sachin Tendulkar. And just going back to that bit about the most successful Australian captain, under his captaincy, his leadership, Australia won 220 out of 300 odd games, which is some achievement. Of course, when you've got McGrath, Warne, and all those batters, you're going to have a good chance. But it was still his leadership that they won so many games. And of course, we can't not mention the 2005 Ashes. Who can forget at Trent Bridge, Ricky Ponting famously getting run out by Gary Pratt, England substitute fielder, and absolutely tearing into anybody that ever spoke to him or asked about it. Remember him walking up the stairs, truntering away, and so that's quite a nice memory. But also he still wears the scar that Steve Harmison gave him, which is also a fond memory. But yeah, number 2, the great Ricky Ponting. Okay, my number 1 favourite Australian batter of all time. There's no special mentions this time because there are loads of Australian batters, but I just don't want to. Number 1, Allan Border, so known as simply as AB, was the most iconic Australian batsman of my time. So when I was first becoming aware of Australian cricket, Allan Border was the first face, the first vision that I had in my head when I thought of Australian batters. So left-hander, went on to score more than 11,000 test runs, captained forever. Border was inducted to the Australia Sport Hall of Fame all the way back in 1990. Held a record for most test runs until 2006 when Brian Charles Lara finally overtook him. So although he averaged more than 15 tests, that would put him in the elite sort of level. He averaged 57 against England, and he was famously known for really wanting to give it to the Poms. Whenever he felt as though Australia or his team were on top of England, he really wanted to turn the screw. And perhaps that's why I have this feeling inside me. But can't deny the man's greatness and his leadership. But what does make me feel a little bit better is that although he averaged 57 with the bat against England, he did bowl a little bit. And when he did bowl against England in test matches, he actually averaged 181. So there you have it, my top 5 Australian batsmen. Like I say, not linked to any particular criteria or amassing of runs or averages, just 5 batters that stick in my memory. So please like, subscribe as usual. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Send me your top 5, your top 3, your number 1, whatever you want to. But please leave me a comment if you can, and that would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, I'll see you later.